If the first false idea about how to increase growth was that governments should spend more and do more, the second is that the answer is unfunded tax cuts. Now, I firmly believe in lower taxes. The most powerful case for the dynamic market economy is that it brings economic freedom and prosperity. And the best expression of that freedom is for all of us to be able to make decisions about how to save, invest, or use the money we earn. The marginal pound our country produces is far better spent by individuals and businesses than government. So I am disheartened when I hear the flippant claim that tax cuts always pay for themselves. They do not. Cutting tax sustainably requires hard work, prioritization, and the willingness to make difficult and often unpopular arguments elsewhere. And it is hard to cut taxes at a time when demands on the state are growing. Our society is aging. I believe that a wealthy and civilized country should offer older people dignity in retirement. But we need to acknowledge that this requires higher public spending on pensions, health and social care, unless political leaders are prepared to have difficult conversations with the public. Health spending is already growing at 3 times the rate of education. And the legacy of COVID is that annual vaccination programs, antivirals and testing add annual extra costs in the billions of pounds. As a Conservative Chancellor, I am often urged to follow Thatcher and Lawson's legacy. They are sound lodestars to navigate by. But we sometimes only hear a partial account of their approach. Observers are quick to highlight the downward trajectory of the tax burden during the 1980s, which was clearly a historic and necessary achievement. But they are perhaps less quick to remember that only once the deficit was under control did they begin cutting taxes. The notion that tax cuts without any spending cuts or substitute source of revenue will so stimulate the economy that the budget balance will improve, enabling further tax cuts to be made, is a spurious kind of virtuous circle and emphatically not part of my thinking. Not my words, those of Nigel Lawson. Thatcher herself recalled in her memoirs ahead of the 1981 budget, "I was horrified at the thought of reversing even some of the progress we had made on bringing down Labour's tax rates," she said. "Yet I knew in my heart of hearts there was only one right decision and that it now had to be made." In that budget, the government froze the income tax personal allowance, a decision I also had to take with equal reluctance 40 years later. I am going to deliver a lower tax economy, but I'm going to do so in a responsible way and in a way that tackles our long-term challenges. The trap of both of those ideas, that we can simply grow the economy with more public spending or supposedly self-funding tax cuts, is that they are both highly seductive, easy answers. Neither are serious or credible. Neither on their own will transform growth, and because they ignore the trade-offs inherent in economic policy, both are irresponsible. So how do we accelerate growth and rejuvenate our national productivity? I believe the most important role for government is to create the conditions for the private sector to do things differently, a new culture of enterprise. In part, that means creating a stable foundation by reinforcing some of those enduring principles of free market economics: sound money, respect for the rule of law, protections for private property rights, openness and free trade, a stable relationship with allies, regulation that encourages competition and innovation, and, especially at a time of high inflation, an independent central bank with a clear and unambiguous mandate for low and stable inflation.